we do this on Wednesdays, man. We had to switch it
Yeah.
up for the weekend only because this week was a little wild, a little crazy. Winter Dean, what's going on? Welcome to the party. Um, it's kind of been impromptu, a little something different. So we'll see how it turns out. I know you're sending out your messages. I better send mine as well. Let's see here. That way we can get this conversation going. Send that, send that. Bink, 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 bink. I think we should be an interesting conversation. Uh, let's see. Okay, okay. Let's keep going down here. Get these folks in here. Should be some interesting conversation. Yeah, there we go. I know we got that. Get Glenn in there. Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Damn. It'll be interesting to hear. Maybe I'll invite the mayor again. See if they jump on.
See if the mayor will show up.
Yeah, see if the mayor show up. That'll be interesting. Which is really interesting because now we have, Donna Deegan, who is a Democratic mayor in Jacksonville, which is interesting. So definitely would be interesting to get her take on what's what if she were to jump on, which would be interesting. Uh, let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. See what else we got going on here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll just
All
go
right.
down the list. All right.
I just send it to I just send it to everybody, man. Eventually somebody will show up, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure, for sure. I'm inviting a lot of people. I want to invite my guy Jamal because I know he's got
What's up,
he's
man?
very opinionated. Let's see what we got here. Boom, boom,
What's up,
boom.
Dan?
I'm seeing. All right, that should be good. I'll invite Chanel too. And yeah, okay, since that's fine. Okay, anyway. All right, cool. Yo, 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 what up, what up, what up, what up? We live, we live, we live, man. So, as always, I like to, give you an interesting article. I had it and I lost it. So unfortunately, unless you got something interesting, I don't really have a whole lot of fresh articles for you. I've been reading a lot of different stuff, but nothing that
I
jumps out
read
at me. What you got?
I did read something where the what is it, the US USDA or whatever, the health organization is gonna allow them to sell us genetically created meat
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
It's gonna
yeah.
be
We'll be
legal
doing
to sell
yeah,
in the United States,
yeah,
which is crazy because there was an article I was reading the other day about how in Russia they don't allow any of that. They don't allow any type of no, Reese is in he's in Florida.
yeah. I'm in
He's in
Florida.
Florida.
Yep.
I'm in Iraq right now. We're just kind of spread out all around the world. Um,
Hmm.
but anyway, so now in our own country, like they're basically saying it's okay to go ahead and sell us fucking, you know,
Lab grown meat,
lab
lab
grown meat.
grown chicken. I saw that.
Um,
That's so insane. It's like what's so crazy about it is the fact that I think I said something the other day, man. I was talking to somebody and they were asking me why is it that all these other countries are willing to stand up and say things against their government or stand up against their government, and why is it that we as Americans don't? Somebody asked me that yesterday, knowing all of the atrocities and the crazy stuff that our government is pushing, and I said, well, part of it is because we live in the lap of luxury. And because we don't want to jeopardize our convenience. I mean, the truth is that slavery in the past, and I wrote this down, was slavery in the past came on the tails of conquest. But slavery of today rides the horse of convenience and comfort. You know what I'm
oh
saying?
yeah,
That, and I think people are not willing to jeopardize their comfort or convenience, even if something is atrocious in front of them. Because it's like, yeah, I know this is wrong, but if I actually stand up for that, or if I were to stand against that, I might be in jeopardy of losing my comfort. I may be in jeopardy of losing my cushy houses and stuff like people will take chains as long as they got cushions on them.
yeah, 100%. I mean, we're a first world country. We're the first world country, so a lot of the problems that we have, we've created. I mean, they're not really covering it right now in the media, but France is burning. Like the
Right,
entire country is damn near up in arms, burning
right,
and rioting across their entire country. They don't want to talk about it,
right,
because they're afraid it's going to spread, and it probably will. Hopefully, it does. I hope it spreads for all of Europe. Honestly, I hope it spreads here because they're not burning down businesses, they're not burning down local establishments. They are literally up in arms against government.
right.
Um,
They're specifically targeting the government. Yeah,
You know,
That's the
that
keeping the
uh,
body.
peeping the body for manipulation using heavy metal blood control, using frequency output towers and satellites. Yeah, I mean, they want a weaker population. They want a weaker mentally. I mean, mentally they want us weaker. Emotionally they want us weaker, and health, and physically they want us weaker. Which is
Right.
why you have giant movements of, you know, trading genders. You have giant movements of, it's okay to be obese. It's okay to be fat. Now here's some genetically modified food. All of our food's crap here anyway. Because if you go to any other country, when I
Yeah.
was in Norway, even if you go eat fast food, everything tastes different
Yeah.
overseas. Because a lot of the shit that we allow in our food here or over there in the United States, they don't allow in most
Right.
other countries. They don't
Correct.
allow the modification and all the
Yeah.
stuff, all the preservatives and everything they put. I mean, just ketchup tastes different. Everything tastes
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, that was like that when I was in Australia, man. It's totally different. The foods that we allow and the things that we allow in general in consumption as a whole is insane. But at the same time, like I say, we want it, we pay for it, we like it, we enjoy it, we embrace it because you know, you know, we're America and we do what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so the topic of the day, man, let's jump right into it, right? So the topic of the day is one of needless to say, high controversy and high division. And it is one of great, I would say, influence, one of great influence and impact on our society because depending on the direction right now, I mean, people are at arms about it. And no pun intended, the issue is arms and guns and the right to bear arms and the right to have weapons and all of these things and gun control and all this stuff, right? So, as you know, July 1st, officially Florida has become a licenseless carry state. So now,
Yep.
for those who don't know, what that means is that you can carry a weapon without a license. You can conceal carry a weapon without a concealed carry license. Now, this has brought a lot of controversy. This has brought a lot of twists and turns in people's minds. Some people are all for it. Some people are all against it. What do you all think? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, or if somebody wants to jump on and give their perspective. How does this help or hurt the potential impact of gun violence in the United States? Because I mean, a lot of it's two different approaches. Because in many of the other states, they want to tighten the current administration and some of the other cities. They want to tighten up gun control. They want more gun control laws. They want more gun restrictions and weapons restrictions because of the fact that, in their minds, that if we need to get a hold of these weapons, because if we don't have a hold of these weapons, then more violence is going to occur. On the flip side, you have somebody like, with Florida, with Ron DeSantis, and his thought process is this is a deterrent. I'm letting everybody carry a gun. So it's like if you come in, so that's the mindset. The mindset is we're going to go back to the constitutional days where there was no licenses, there was no carries back in the day. Everybody had a weapon. You protect your house and your home, and that's just the way it was. And so then there was an old saying years ago that said the reason that nobody ever really attacked America for real was because there was a gun behind every blade of grass. And so that's DeSantis' mindset, is that he signed this into law saying, listen, yeah, we got our background checks and stuff, but you don't really need no license to have a weapon. You got the background checks to purchase a weapon. You can't purchase it unless you get checked, but you don't need to have a license or that kind of stuff. You get your weapon and you can protect yourself. So those are the two approaches. Those are two perspectives. And obviously gun control is a very controversial situation. I've heard some very interesting arguments. And so yeah, what are your thoughts?
So, I mean, like you said, man, it's a very touchy subject, and everybody has their own input and their own experience. Obviously, we were in the military, so like I was in the infantry. I work a job now where I carry a gun, so like very familiar with guns. I'm always around guns. I feel very safe around guns. And even when I have a problem, like in my civilian life, like I don't feel like my gun is the first option when I have a disagreement or I get upset or I get angry. And I think that, that's a big fear in people's minds because there are weak-minded individuals that when they have a gun, they feel more powerful. They feel, they feel like that is the equalizer. And it is. So on that note, I can kind of commiserate and understand where people are coming from. However, at the base of it, freedom is dangerous. having freedom is dangerous. And if you want freedom, there's going to be danger. And in order to protect that freedom, you have to have weapons, you have to have guns. The Second Amendment was formed in order for the people of this nation to be able to fight off a tyrannical government or a foreign power should they show up. You know, if the militias and stuff that were armed in the American Revolution didn't have guns, then what would have happened? Because the militias were a huge part in us beating the British and us forming this country. So I believe, I like it. I don't think you should have to have a license to carry a gun. Should there be age restrictions and background checks? Yeah, I think there is a way that we can sit down and enforce the laws that we already have, because I think there's thousands of laws on the books already. They're just not enforced. And where they are enforced, it doesn't matter, because criminals will get guns regardless. You know what I'm saying? So I think a great deterrent is an armed society, because if someone thinks that everybody in a gas station is armed, are they really going to try to rob that gas station?
Right.
No. If you go into a school and you know that every single teacher has a gun, are you going to try to shoot up a school? You're probably not going to make it very far.
So here's the counter argument to that, right? So I read about this, and where they actually had an experiment. I forget where it was, but they did an experiment where they armed teachers, right?
Okay.
And apparently one of the teachers got a little upset with one of the students and pulled the gun out, and apparently was about to shoot the kids. So now you're in a situation where it's like it's like catch-22, because on one hand, yes, if everybody's armed, I do believe it is a deterrent. I think you are much less likely to come in, because you remember when the recent shooting that they had with the transgender kid at the church,
Tennessee, right?
Yeah, something like that. So one of the things they found out was that in her books, or in the books, in her notebooks and diary or whatever, part of the how she selected the school, because she was going to choose between two different schools, and how she selected the school was because she picked that one because it was part of it was because they had weaker security. They had weaker security, and they knew that, and nobody in there, was armed or nothing like that. So that's why, that they selected that. They always pick somewhere that has lesser or weaker security. And I think that in one aspect, if everybody has a weapon, if teachers and security and all them, if they're all in there armed and strapped, you better believe you're going to have a second thought, because it's like, I might walk in here and be in trouble. Because you look at the situation what was in the mall a few months back or whatnot, where there was a shooter, an active shooter in a mall or something like that, and there was a civilian standing by and popped him, and there it is. So it's like you're getting two sides of the same coin, because on one hand you do have folks who don't know what they're doing, who don't need to have weapons, who don't, who are not mentally stable, and I think that goes into the background checks and the psychological checks and things like that. But you and I both know, being veterans, there are a lot of guys who can pass them tests but ain't quite all there, and so
the problem is people want a 100% guarantee on safety, and it doesn't exist.
Right.
Okay, that's like saying, I can guarantee you're going to get in your car and not get in a car accident today. There's just no way to guarantee 100% safety. There's always going to be a what if. There's always going to be a crack. There's always going to be someone who just goes against the grain. There's going to be that person that lies, that is mentally unstable, that does get a gun. Are people going to get hurt? Yeah, unfortunately, people are going to get hurt. But people get hurt all the time from bad people, and it has nothing to do with guns, knives, cars, bombs, diseases, food, whatever. We can sit here and list every object in the world that people use as something that's weaponized. So I really don't feel that, we have a huge gun problem in the United States. I feel like we have a cultural problem in the United States. I feel like we have a culture where people who are armed like to go after people who are not armed. So I feel like if we have an armed populace, that will cut down on it. And if there has to be a little culling that goes on, as in these people still want to try something, but there's a bunch of armed people and they get taken down, all the more the better. That's part of being free. When you have freedom, it's dangerous. Right. And anybody who would choose safe slavery over dangerous freedom deserves to not have freedom.
Well, it's like it's like what I think it was Benjamin Franklin's attributed for saying. He said, one who is willing to sacrifice freedom for safety ends up losing both. Yeah, it
Yeah, it
deserves
deserves
neither.
neither.
Yeah, it deserves neither. Yeah, you know, it's like you're in a tough situation because I mean, obviously the media plays a big role because they highlight a lot of these gun issues and violent acts. One thing we talked about a long time ago was how the media started to change the narrative, and so any shooting like in a public space was called a mass shooting, and it was like you look at the mass shooting and it was like one person got shot or three people got shot, and it was called a mass shooting. And what that does is, and I'm not discounting anybody because hopefully, because you don't want anybody to get shot in the public space, anybody who
No, no,
opens
no, no,
fire
no.
in the public, yeah, you don't want any of that. But what
Uh-huh.
happens is that when the media frames it as everything is a mass shooting, then the mindset psychologically is you condition society to be like, we have all of these mass shootings, and we need to do something, and it kind of through out of fear we make an irrational decision, right? Um, and I think that what we're doing now is that, and so here's the other part of it. As we know that in any totalitarian or tyrannical takeover, one of the first things they do is disarm the citizens, and so there's that side of it. Um,
So, so you brought up a really good point. So they, and people always tell, they call them gun nuts and stuff like that. They're like, oh, the government's not coming for their guns. They're not going to come door to door. No, I don't believe that the government will go door to door. What the government's going to do is exactly what they did during COVID. Is they didn't do anything. What they did was they made everybody fight each other, and they split us down the middle between vax and unvaxxed. It's the
right,
same thing with guns. They don't have to do anything. All you have to do is put laws in place like red flag laws, and all of a sudden neighbors are calling on neighbors. Every time you get in a
right,
disagreement, they know you have a gun. Red flag law. Oh, well, he got angry one day, so now we have to take away his guns. And that's how they're going to do it. And just like the pistol brace ban or the bump stock or whatever makes people feel good, that's what they're going to do. And they're going to legislate rights away. They can't take them away. There's too many guns. There's too many people. And honestly, all it would take is one time for the police to go to the wrong house, get in a
right,
shootout, turn it into a thing, and then like the real crazies come out. Like I'm talking like the Michigan militias and stuff like that are going to come out the woodworks. All the people that have been
right,
standing by
right,
saying for years that
right,
that's going to happen, they'll come out. And then what's going to happen? Are they going to mobilize the military? Are they going to send in the National Guard? Is that even going to work? Does the government want that on their hands? So I don't believe that it's going to be a door-to-door takeover. I think it's going to be legislation, and it's going to be basically convincing people to turn their neighbors in, which we've already seen that. We already saw that with COVID.
right,
People were turning
right,
on each other like vehemently, like, "Oh, if you're not vaccinated, I hope you die." Like, what the
right.
fuck, man?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how it's going to go. And talking about the media sensationalizes something. When you have a school shooting, okay, how many I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I imagine there's
I'm
several
pulling them up.
hundred
I was
thousand.
actually pulling them up as we speak.
Good. So while you're at it, look up how many schools there are in the United States. I'm sure there's several hundred thousands of schools from
Right,
elementary all the way up through colleges, right? Hundreds of thousands, if not up to a million, right? If one school shooting happens and then it gets blasted across the media, if there's a school shooting in Texas, does that mean everybody in Oklahoma doesn't need to go to school that day? Or are they being sensationalized and being told that they should be scared because at any given time at any school in America, someone can walk in with a gun? So you're basically feeding into the fear. Because even after Columbine
right,
happened in the 90s, we didn't see the sensationalization of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a
right,
bad event. Everyone was like, holy shit, we can't believe this happened. But you didn't
right,
have a string of shootings afterwards. You didn't have everybody got home. I watched it, like I didn't get a day off of school. My mom sent me to school. She was like, you're going to school. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like it wasn't sensationalized like it is now. Now, every time that there's a shooting or a mass shooting, which we got to get into later because they're not, there's a mass shooting almost every day in New Orleans, but they don't talk about it nationally.
right,
A mass shooting is, I'm pretty sure all it has to be is up to three people or more injured or shot in a shooting. It's a mass shooting. Happens
right,
almost every day in these major cities. They don't talk about it. You want to know why? Because if it's not a multi-racial or multi-ethnic event, doesn't fit the narrative, doesn't make people upset. It doesn't give
mhm,
anybody any ammunition to go out and hate each other.
right. Yeah, no, I mean you hit a lot of really interesting points. I think And like I said, it's always a big thing with the media. Got my boy Darren in the house. What's up, man? He's actually works in the government. He's a
Uh-oh.
city council. I think he was running everything. So that'd be good if he wants to jump on and give us some thoughts on this issue.
Absolutely.
I think I mean, when we talk about mass shootings and we talk about shootings in general, I mean, gun violence, as we know, is a big deal, right? I heard something the other day, man. I'm trying to find it. This was very interesting. So I got the stats right here for a number of like victims of school shootings since 1982 to 2023 of March. I'm trying to narrow it down. So we have, according to this, let me expand the statistics. So I pulled the numbers up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So what's interesting is that as of, according to, this is statista.com. I mean, this is the status, supposed to be stat.com. According to statista.com, since 1982 to 2023, there have been, what I say, 23, 22?
Mm-hmm.
There have been 23 school shootings since 1982. So you put it in perspective, you know, since 1982, there's been that many. But what's interesting about this is I'm looking at the victim totals and things. So the deadliest school shooting that has ever occurred as of 1982 was the Virginia Tech massacre.
Okay, I remember that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the Asian kid in the tower, right? Or
I believe so.
I believe he was in an elevated position.
Yeah. So Virginia Tech was the worst one, and then after that was Uvalde, Texas.
Okay, so that one just recently happened.
Right, that recently happened in
last
2022. Right, 2022. So as of a whole, like I said, as a whole, the total number of school shootings has been about 22 school shootings since 1982. Now, what's interesting about that, though, is that, and by no means am I discounting these because there shouldn't be any school shootings at all. But if you span that across the years, I want to look at because one of the things they talked about how it's increased. Okay, here we go. Yeah, you're right. Since 2013, the source defines a mass shooting as any single attack in a public place with 3 or more fatalities.
Mm-hmm. 3 or more. Yeah, I thought it was 3 or more.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so that's how they qualify mass shooting. Now, what's interesting about that is that they didn't used to call it that, though. Because if you look at the media, they used to say, you know, there was a shooting down in Jacksonville, Florida. There was a shooting in New Orleans, but it wasn't called a mass shooting. Even if it was 2 or 3 people got hit, you know, 4 or 5 people got killed in the barbecue or something like that, or on the block. It was just normal. Like, nobody really cares about it if it happens. You know what's interesting? Nobody really cares about it if it happens in the hood. You know what I'm saying? Nobody really cares about it if it happens in New Orleans or any of these other places. You know what I'm saying? It's only in these public eye places that there's an issue. When violence happens on a regular basis in any of these neighborhoods, they just look at it like, well, yeah, that's just part of the neighborhood. It is what it is. You know, and I find that on both sides, for the people who are advocating for gun rights and the people who don't advocate for gun rights, I know that a lot of them don't talk about it when it comes to their neighborhoods. Like, for example, I remember Chicago, as you know, is a war zone in many aspects. They call it Chirac. You know what I mean? So Chicago has one of the highest homicide rates in the world, and what's so interesting about it, they had these shootings over the weekend. I think it was over I want to say New Year's, or it was something like that last year before last, 2021 or something. There was a bunch of shootings in Chicago. A bunch of people got killed, and including like 10 kids, you know what I mean? And one thing they thought was interesting was that one of the leaders in the community came out and said, how come we don't get no protest? Where's our media coverage? Where's our, BLM funding? Where's our government coverage? Where's the outrage? How come nobody cares about this, chaos going on in our neighborhoods, but we care about when it's in the public eye. We care about when it's over here at the major party or at the major parade or whatever case is. Where is that? Not to discount anybody's pain, not to discount anybody's issues, but we have to, if we're going to really care about this issue, then it needs to be objective. It needs to be on both sides at all aspects. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't talk about stop the violence. And here's the other thing, and this is a side note, this may be kind of a rabbit hole, but one of the things that frustrates me a lot is and I see, and I hate to say it, but I see it a lot in the black community where we talk about stop the violence all the time, but yet all we do, not all we do, but just generally speaking, most of the stuff that we promote, that we propagandize, that we embrace, that we enjoy is all violent. I mean, all we talk about is violence. All our music is violence. All of our TV shows are violent. All of our activities are violence. We embrace violence. We think it's cool. And so you got to think, when you glamorize this stuff, you desensitize a population, then it's no surprise that when violence increases, it just seems hypocritical. When we say, it seems hypocritical to me, when we say things like, and it's called culture, absolutely, and it's called culture. It seems so hypocritical. It's hypocritical to me to say, things like stop the violence, or we march because somebody got shot by the police, or whatever the case is, but yet we don't advocate for these things in our own communities on a regular basis.
Well, we've talked about that before, how, a lot of the black community doesn't understand why the white community can't get behind BLM and stuff like that and stop the violence. And then that's one of the biggest reasons. And if you hear people talk about it, they're like, yeah, so 100 black people were killed by the police, right? How many thousands of black people were killed by other black people in their own neighborhoods over the year? You know what I'm saying? So you take that, and then you want to promote, be like, hey, the police hate black people, we have to stop the police, and then people are like, but what about all the people getting killed like at the cyclic rate in the cities right now? Because that really, black on black crime is, I think if you go look up the numbers, is one of the highest rates of crime that they have in these cities right now. When I was a paramedic on the street, I can tell you, I can 100% tell you that the chances of a black person killing a white person were very low, and a white person killing a black person very low. Usually, black people kill black people, white people kill white people. That's what happened when I worked inside and outside of New Orleans for 9 years on the street. Okay, 8 years on the street. And I can tell you, like, that was how the demographic works. All right. So everything that they propagate in the media is just, it's not true. And what it does is it serves to create two different bases. And instead of these bases coming together and seeing the real problems that they have. So, you're sitting there talking about, hey, the black community needs to do this. Yeah, they do. But do we also need to make sure that the police are policing correctly? Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah, 100%. But what you're doing is you're creating two different bases that are only caring about the one thing that's going on instead of the whole. And I think the whole problem that we have in the country is a cultural problem. We have a cultural problem when it comes to violence, because we do have a society of violence. There's a whole subculture that promotes violence, and honestly, dude, it's not just the black community; it's all the communities. Every video game that comes out is training kids, and I'm not going to sit here and advocate against video games or against violence or anything like that, because I've enjoyed the shit out of some shoot 'em up games, right? But I also know that's fake. It's not real. I know that, like, if I get into a fight out in the street, I don't need to pull a gun to solve an issue every time. The gun, your gun should be that is your last resort. Now, if it becomes your first resort because of the situation, then that dude chose the wrong day to fuck with you. And I get that. Many times I've seen it. I've seen, people get killed over some stupid shit because someone road rage, cuts them off, in the gas station line, dings their car in a parking lot, and immediately, because they have that gun. Unfortunately, with guns, that's going to happen because weaker people will feel more empowered with guns. But the way you cut down on that is by making everybody proficient with guns. That way, even the weaker people will be like, man, if I pull my gun out, everybody in Walmart has a fucking gun.
Right. The whole Walmart strap. No, I agree. I think that, and I think the biggest issue, and I think we can really break it down to a cultural issue. I mean, it's really cultural. I mean, all the problems that we have when it comes, because it's okay. We have a cultural issue, as we know. People are just immature. You know what I'm saying? People can't one, talk things out anymore, and then two, we've gotten to this place where we're so weak just emotionally, mentally, and physically, that we turn around and we decide that the gun is the only way that we can solve a problem. And I think that's insane. I've seen it in situations, where guys at the gym get in an argument over a foul, or guys in the gym get in an argument over, a bad call. And now you got cats mad. And they talking about, I'm going to go to the car. And, I remember I read a story about that in Atlanta where a guy, he got in an argument at a gym playing basketball, and he went to the car, got his gun, came back and shot the dude. And it was just like, what are we doing? So I can understand from that regard and that perspective. I totally understand why people want gun rights. I totally understand why people want gun control. I totally understand why people want, like, we need to get these guns out of people's hands because folks are crazy. And I'll be honest with you, I totally get that, man. I totally understand that. But on the flip side, if we lay out how often does that happen in comparison to the average person? Yeah, I mean, how often do things like that happen in comparison to the overarching grand scheme of people who have weapons? Because, I mean, the reality is that 65%, I would say 65 to 70% of people who have weapons will never be in a situation where they have to pull them. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, it's probably even higher than that. On the average American or the average person who lives in like a first world, situation, think about it. How often are you really going to ever be in a situation where you're actually going to have to use your weapon? Very low. You see what I'm saying? Depending on where you live, depending on, all that kind of situations. But even depending on where you live, most cases, honestly, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's very rare. But
you're 100% correct, and that's what I always tell people, because when I'm home in New Orleans, I carry a gun almost everywhere, literally almost everywhere. I don't tell people that I have it. Most people who know me know that I more than likely have one on me, but right. I don't telegraph it. I don't talk about it. I don't threaten to pull it out. My chances of actually pulling my gun are so significantly low. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like having a parachute, man. The one time you need it and you don't have it, you're never gonna fucking need it again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you carry it. It's like having a life jacket on a boat. I've been on boats a long time, my entire life. Never been on a boat that sank. That doesn't mean there wasn't life jackets on on the boats that I was on.
Right.
It's the same premise. Same thing that you have a flat tire kit in your car. You may never get a flat tire in your car. I know people have never gotten a flat tire, but guess what? You have a spare, you have a jack, and you have the tools. It's a safety net.
Right.
That's all it is. And the problem is, and you go back to what you said, it is a cultural problem because, if people are quick to just go to the gun, then that's the issue. The gun's not the issue. It's why would we go to guns? Because if you go back to like the 1950s and 60s, people were bringing guns to school. Kids used to go to school with gun racks in their cars. There weren't mass shootings. There weren't people pulling out guns and killing each other, and that spans all.
Yeah. No, I mean, you froze for a minute, but I think we lost you for a second. But no, you're right though. I mean, I think that culture has changed so much in the last 50 years, 60 years. Culture has changed so much. We have become so cold-hearted, and we become so immature in our ways, and we become so superficial in our thinking. You know what I'm saying? I think that's one of the big things that impacts us at such a great level. And I think the whole gun issue, me and my father, we've talked about this a few times, and surprisingly, he's actually very much on the gun control side, which is shocking. I was surprised. I mean, he was in the military, and so oftentimes, military typically lean more toward having weapons as opposed to gun control, but he's more on the side of gun control, and it's like, okay, cool. And it's more like having an addendum where it's like, listen, for the next 6 to 8 months or next year, don't be caught with a weapon, you know what I'm saying? Or else, you should, that's your tail, you know what I mean? In order to curtail some of the violence. But the question becomes, if we were to go in the gun control direction, right? If we were to go in that direction of saying, okay, civilians don't need weapons, because there was a young lady recently that I heard about, and she was saying that civilians don't need weapons at all. You need to get weapons out of civilians' hands because, the people don't need it. The only people that should have weapons are government and police officers. But see, that's the problem, because if you do that, now you're in a situation where you are at the beck and call. You are at the mercy of the government, and you're at the mercy of the government and the police and things like that. And if you already don't trust the police, well, now you're going to put it in a situation where now they have all the weapons and you don't have anything. And oh, by the way, and the criminals, because of course criminals are going to have weapons too.